Beneath the blood-red skies of a distant, war-torn planet, Zyra's ship, a sleek vessel shaped like a tear, pierced through the atmosphere, leaving a trail of blue fire in its wake. The ship descended swiftly towards an isolated outpost on the surface, a mere speck in the vast wilderness that stretched across the horizon. Zyra, of the Galian race from a planet beyond the known sectors of the galaxy, had not come to Earth for conquest, but for knowledge. Her race was advanced, not only in technology but also in their understanding of the biological complexities of life forms across the cosmos. Now she was drawn to Earth by tales of a species that had mastered pleasure and emotional connections beyond any other she had known. The outpost was rudimentary, a collection of steel structures and satellite dishes, probably for communication and monitoring, not far from a dense forest that blanketed much of the terrain. As her ship landed softly on the clearing, Zyra prepared herself. She donned her suit, a slim-fit biotech armor that accentuated her tall, lithe form, her skin a shimmering silver, eyes a piercing blue that seemed almost translucent. As she stepped out of her ship, the air was thick with the smell of wet earth and growing things, a stark contrast to her sterile environment. Her arrival did not go unnoticed. A human, a young male stationed at the outpost, emerged from the main building. His eyes widened in obvious surprise, not just at the unexpected visit, but at the sight of Zyra's otherworldly beauty. Who are you?" he stammered, his voice a mix of fear and fascination. "I am Zyra from the Galian sector. I seek understanding of your species," she replied, her voice musical but authoritative. "I've come with peaceful intentions." The human, still wary, nodded slowly. "I'm Tom, just a watcher here. What do you want to understand?" "Your species has explored aspects of sensation and connection that we find intriguing. I wish to learn, firsthand, about what drives these experiences," Zyra said, her gaze fixed on him with an intensity that seemed to look right through him. Tom gulped, the implications of her words slowly dawning on him. He was aware of the tales among spacefarers of the Galians' curiosities. "You mean, you want to know about intimacy?" "Yes," she confirmed without a hint of hesitation. "Specifically, I've heard of a particular human experience involving tasting what is between the legs." Tom's face flushed a deep red, a reaction Zyra noted with scientific interest. "You mean, oral?" "Yes, exactly that," Zyra cut in, eager to learn. "I wish to understand this interaction completely." Tom, still processing the shock, managed a nod. "I'm not sure how to, begin to explain." "No need for explanations, Tom," Zyra said, stepping closer, her presence overwhelming. "I prefer practical learning. It is the Galian way." Her forwardness took Tom aback, but the isolation of the outpost and the absence of human companionship for months made him reconsider. He was a representative of humanity, after all, and here was a chance to intermingle with a being from the stars. What stories he would have if he survived this encounter. "All right," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Follow me inside." As they entered the dimly lit interior of the outpost, Zyra's senses were assaulted by the myriad smells and sights of human habitation. Metal, old fabric, and a hint of something sweet and indefinably human. Tom led her to a small private room, usually reserved for personal downtime. "Is this suitable for your study?" Tom asked, his voice uncertain. "Perfect," Zyra responded, her eyes glinting with curiosity and an eagerness that might have been mistaken for something more predatory. "Now show me, Tom. Show me this part of humanity." And so, under the strange alien sky, Tom began to share with Zyra the most intimate of human experiences, bridging worlds in a way neither of them could have truly anticipated. Zyra's education on human intimacy began under the soft hum of the outpost's lights, casting long shadows across the Spartan room. As Tom hesitantly explained the mechanics of human pleasure, her analytical mind processed each word with clinical precision. Yet there was a burgeoning curiosity within her, a stirring of her senses that her scientific pursuits had never quite touched. Tom, standing awkwardly before her, pointed to a diagram he had drawn hastily on his digital tablet. "This is where you taste," he said, his finger tracing the outlines of human anatomy. Zira observed the screen, her head tilted slightly, absorbing every detail with a rare fascination. Human responses to such stimuli are both physiological and emotional, Tom continued, his voice steadying as he warmed to the subject. There's a release of chemicals, endorphins and oxytocin, that creates a bond and pleasure. Zira nodded, her eyes never leaving the screen. And this bonding? It is essential to your species' social structure? In many ways, yes, Tom replied, finding his footing in familiar scientific territory. It strengthens connections, promotes well-being, and has been pivotal in our evolutionary history. Fascinated by the dual nature of human intimacy, both biological necessity and emotional profundity, Zira was eager to proceed. I wish to proceed with the practical application. I believe it will provide insights beyond these theoretical explanations. With a nervous swallow, Tom agreed. He guided her through the human rituals of intimacy, starting with the simple act of touch. Zira's silver skin shimmered under his tentative fingers, her body temperature slightly lower than his, her texture unfamiliar yet inviting. As they moved closer to the act itself, Zira's learning shifted from the theoretical to the experiential. She was quick to adapt, her senses finely tuned to pick up on Tom's reactions. Each breath, each subtle shift in his expression. It was a dance of discovery, for both the alien and the human, each movement and response cataloged and analyzed. Tom, caught between his role as a teacher and a participant, found himself in an unexpected state of vulnerability. Zira's approach, though scientific, was not devoid of gentleness. Her curiosity did not feel invasive, but rather genuinely inquisitive about the intricacies of human pleasure. As Zira engaged in the act of tasting, her sensory organs, far more advanced than those of humans, detected nuances of chemistry and emotion that Tom could barely comprehend. She was mapping not just a physical response, but a panorama of emotional landscapes that unfolded with each moment. The session continued, with Zira meticulously noting the effects of her actions and Tom's responses. Her alien mind cataloged every detail, from the physiological changes in Tom's body to the emotional ebbs and flows that accompanied them. When they finally paused, the room was silent, save for the soft electronic hum of the outpost's life support system. Tom, lying back, looked up at the metallic ceiling, his mind racing with a mix of embarrassment, astonishment, and a peculiar sense of connection. Zira, ever the scientist, was compiling her findings in real time, her biotech suit integrating the data into her vast library of knowledge. Your species' capacity for emotional depth is profound, she observed, her tone respectful and awed. The linkage between physical sensation and emotional health is more intricate than I anticipated. Tom turned to her, a tentative smile breaking through his initial discomfort. It's not just science for us, he said softly. It's life. It's connection. It's what makes us human. Zira regarded him with a newfound appreciation. This encounter, under the auspices of scientific inquiry, had revealed layers of human existence that no data stream could fully convey. The depth of human intimacy, with all its complexities and nuances, was a rich tapestry that she was only beginning to understand. As they prepared to continue their exploration, both scholar and subject were aware that this exchange was altering them in imperceptible yet profound ways. As the hours unfolded into the deep Martian night, the bond between Zira and Tom deepened, transcending the initial awkwardness of their encounter. With each experiment, each shared moment of vulnerability, the space between them filled with a mutual respect and a strange kinship. Tom, who had started as a reluctant teacher, found himself fascinated by Zira's methodical yet sensitive approach to learning about human intimacy. In the quiet of the outpost, they conversed about the similarities and differences between their species. Zira spoke of Galian society, where emotions were understood and manipulated with scientific precision, their expressions and experiences engineered for efficiency and harmony. Tom listened intently, his mind reeling at the thought of emotions as constructs, something to be designed and controlled. Our interactions are governed by algorithms, Zira explained, her voice a melody of curiosity and nostalgia. "We can simulate feelings, enhance them, or suppress them to maintain societal balance. But we lose the spontaneity you have here." Tom considered this, the weight of her words sinking in. "Sounds practical, but I guess it's a bit lonely, huh?" "Loneliness is an irrelevant concept in Galian culture," she replied, her tone neutral. "Yet, observing humans, I perceive its significance, its driving force behind many of your interactions." Their conversation drifted to the stars above, visible through the outpost's transparent ceiling, points of light in the vast cosmos. Zyra pointed out constellations known to her people, while Tom shared Earth's ancient myths woven around those same celestial patterns. This exchange of knowledge led them back to their ongoing exploration of intimacy. Now, as Zyra applied her newfound understanding, her touches became more nuanced, her actions more attuned to Tom's reactions. She learned to read the unspoken language of his body, the quick breaths, the involuntary tremors, and the quiet periods of relaxation. Tom, for his part, experienced a gamut of emotions he had never anticipated sharing with an alien. Each of Zyra's touches, though scientific in intent, resonated with a warmth that felt oddly comforting in the sterile environment of the outpost. As Zyra's understanding deepened, so did her technique. She used her knowledge to evoke responses from Tom that were both intense and illuminating, cataloging each reaction with a precision that no human researcher could match. Her alien fingers explored with a gentleness born of absolute control, yet her interest seemed to grow beyond mere data collection. "There is beauty in this chaos," Zyra murmured as she paused, her hands still. "The unpredictability of human emotion, its resistance to simple categorization. There's a profound beauty to it." Tom met her gaze, seeing in her eyes a flicker of something beyond scientific curiosity, a spark of wonder, perhaps, or an echo of the very emotions her species sought to engineer away. The night progressed, and their exploration ventured into realms of greater emotional depths, testing the limits of what Zyra's scientific detachment could handle. She began to respond in kind, her own reactions becoming part of the study, blurring the lines between observer and participant. As dawn approached, casting a pale light over the red Martian landscape, Zyra and Tom sat side by side, no longer just researcher and subject, but companions who had shared something ineffable and profound. "In your quest for knowledge, you might have gained more than you bargained for," Tom said quietly, his voice reflective. Zyra turned to him, her expression contemplative. "In science, as in life, sometimes the greatest discoveries are unexpected." Together, they watched the sunrise, contemplating the vastness of space and the intricacies of intimacy, forever altered by their interstellar encounter. As the Martian sun climbed higher, its pale light spilling over the metallic surfaces of the outpost, Zyra and Tom prepared for a new phase of their exploration. Energized by their night of shared discoveries, they decided to venture outside, seeking to contextualize their indoor experiences with the raw beauty of the Martian wilderness. Equipped with protective gear against the harsh environment, they stepped out into the cold, red dust that blanketed the landscape. The silence of Mars enveloped them, a stark reminder of the planet's desolate beauty. Tom led Zyra to a nearby ridge where the ground fell away to reveal a sweeping vista of undulating dunes and jagged rock formations. "Out here, it's easy to feel both insignificant and omnipotent," Tom mused, his voice muffled through his helmet. Zyra looked out over the expanse, her sensors absorbing the alien landscape, comparing it to the terrains of countless worlds catalogued in her memory. As they walked, Zyra's curiosity turned towards the natural world of Mars. She questioned Tom about the geological formations, the history of Martian exploration, and humanity's aspirations for this lonely planet. Each of his answers provided insights not only into human knowledge, but also into their innate desire to explore and connect, even with environments as inhospitable as Mars. Their conversation drifted back to the previous night's revelations. "I've been thinking about what you said," Tom started, his voice thoughtful. "About how emotions in your society are managed. It's hard to imagine living without the messiness of feelings." Zira paused, considering his words. It is efficient. It allows us to avoid conflicts, to advance quickly, but she hesitated, searching for the right words. There's something compelling about your uncontrolled experiences. They are raw, powerful. They found a sheltered spot between two boulders, protected from the thin wind. Sitting close, their suits touching, Zira initiated a new experiment, this time focusing on emotional responses evoked by their surroundings. Describe what you feel right now, being here with me on this ridge, she prompted. Tom looked out over the Martian plains, then at Zira. I feel awe, I suppose. Awe at Mars, at you, at us being here together. It's overwhelming, but in a good way. It makes the hardships of being stationed here seem smaller, more bearable. And do these feelings influence your physiological state? Zira inquired, her tone still that of a researcher, yet softer, more nuanced than before. Yeah, they do. My heart rate is up, not just from the walk. There's a kind of excitement, anticipation. It's different from just survival or routine. Zira processed his words, correlating them with the data she collected. This connection, it's not just physical then. It extends to the environment, to shared experiences. It's symbiotic. Yes, exactly, Tom agreed, pleased with her understanding. It's about sharing moments, making memories. That's what gives life here meaning. Encouraged by his words, Zira suggested extending their study to include shared activities that were less about physical data and more about emotional experiences. Together, they planned a series of observations and experiments for the coming days, intending to delve deeper into the emotional landscapes they had begun to explore. Their days became a blend of scientific inquiry and genuine human connection. They collected samples, conducted tests, and shared meals, their conversations meandering through topics scientific, philosophical, and personal. Each moment was an opportunity for Zira to learn, and for Tom, a chance to see his world through her eyes. This period of cooperative exploration not only enriched Zira's research, but also reshaped her understanding of her own emotional capacities. She found herself anticipating their interactions, valuing Tom's opinions, and considering his emotions in her responses. As the days passed, the boundary between researcher and subject continued to blur, weaving a complex tapestry of interspecies understanding that neither had anticipated, challenging the very nature of their encounter with every shared sunrise and sunset on the red Martian soil. As Zira and Tom's exploration progressed, the distinction between observer and participant grew increasingly nebulous. With each experiment designed to probe the depths of human emotion, Zira found her own responses becoming richer, more complex, a phenomenon she hadn't entirely predicted. Her scientific detachment, once a seamless shield, now flickered with breaches of genuine emotional engagement. During an experiment focused on shared fear and protection, meant to simulate a sudden environmental hazard, Tom's instinctive reaction to shield Zira with his own body initiated an unexpected sequence of emotional responses in her. As they huddled together under the pretense of imminent danger, her sensors not only recorded Tom's elevated heart rate, but also detected a similar anomaly in her own physiological readings. I noticed an increase in my own stress markers during that simulation, Zira confessed later as they reviewed the data in the outpost's lab. This is unusual for me. Galian physiology is typically unresponsive to such stimuli unless manually adjusted. Tom, analyzing the graphs over her shoulder, nodded slowly. Maybe it's exposure. Being around humans, sharing experiences. Maybe it's affecting you more than you realize. Intrigued by this hypothesis, Zira decided to shift the focus of her study slightly. Now she not only observed Tom, but also began self-monitoring her reactions in real time, a dual narrative that enriched the data exponentially. Their studies ventured deeper into the realm of emotions when they started exploring shared joy. They conducted these new experiments by engaging in activities that were known to elicit happiness in humans, watching Earth's classic comedies, sharing stories of personal triumph, and even simple games that Tom had programmed into the outpost's entertainment system. Laughter, a sound rarely heard in the sterile corridors of the outpost, now echoed against the walls with surprising frequency. Zira, initially observing Tom's reactions, soon found herself caught in the infectious bouts of mirth. Her laughter, though slightly metallic, melded with his, creating a symphony of sounds that felt oddly harmonious. "This is fascinating," Zira remarked after a particularly spirited game session. "I am beginning to understand the social bonding function of shared happiness. It is uplifting, isn't it?" "It's one of the best parts of being human," Tom replied, his eyes crinkling with residual amusement. "These moments, they make everything else worth it." As their collection of shared experiences grew, so did the intimacy of their interactions. Their conversations drifted into late hours, filled not only with talk of data and study, but also with personal revelations and existential musings. One evening, as Mars's 2 moons rose in the thin sky, painting the landscape in shades of silver and blue, Zira and Tom found themselves outside the outpost, wrapped in their protective suits against the cold. They watched the moon's ascent in companionable silence, a contrast to the bustling activity that their days had become. "It seems," Zira started, her voice thoughtful as she turned to look at Tom, "that in learning about human emotions I'm experiencing a shift in my own perceptions. My programming suggests I should reset my emotional baselines to avoid contamination of data, but I find myself reluctant to do so." Tom looked back at her, his expression soft under the harsh lights of his helmet. "Maybe it's okay to explore that change, see where it leads you. Isn't that what science is about? Discovery?" Zira paused, considering his words. The planets above them moved slowly in their eternal paths, indifferent to the turmoil of emotions stirring in the heart of one alien scientist. "Yes," she finally said, her voice barely more than a whisper carried over their comms. "Perhaps this is not just a study of human emotion, but also a discovery of Galilean potential for change." Together, under the gaze of distant stars and the watchful eyes of Mars' moons, they contemplated the possibilities of a universe where not only individuals but also entire species could evolve through the simple, profound act of sharing experiences. As the night deepened, so did their bond, a testament to the transformative power of connection across the cosmos. The culmination of Zira and Tom's shared experiments approached as the Martian winds whipped up dust devils dancing across the barren landscape, signaling the inevitable closing of their unique chapter. Zira, who had initially approached this mission with the clinical detachment of a scientist, now found herself grappling with a spectrum of emotions that were both exhilarating and disconcerting. In their final week together, they designed an experiment to encapsulate all they had learned and experienced. This last experiment was not just about emotional responses or physical interactions. It aimed to integrate their findings into a comprehensive understanding of how such profound connections could influence interspecies relations and personal growth. They chose to conduct this final session at one of Mars's ancient impact craters, a site of significant geological interest and stark beauty. As they stood on the rim, looking over the expanse that spoke of both destruction and time's passage, they prepared their equipment, each movement tinged with the unspoken awareness of an ending. "This feels like more than just data now," Tom remarked, securing a sensor on his wrist. "It's like we're about to map uncharted territories of ourselves." Zira, adjusting her own devices, nodded. "Our findings could redefine Galilean understanding of emotional capacities, but personally, it has already redefined me." As they activated their sensors, they began a silent walk down into the crater, their footsteps a soft crunch against the gravel. The experiment was simple. They would discuss their most significant findings and personal revelations, measuring their emotional and physiological responses to recounting and reliving these moments. With each shared memory, the data streamed in real time across their visors, graphs and numbers charting the terrain of their inner landscapes, as effectively as any map of Mars charted the physical. Laughter, empathy, surprise, and the more subtle shades of emotions were all logged, analyzed by both Galilean and human technologies. "I never thought I'd find a friend in an alien," Tom said at one point, his voice thick with the emotions that their devices captured and quantified. or that I'd be sad to see a research mission end. And I never anticipated that an assignment would lead me to question fundamental aspects of my existence, Zyra responded, her voice echoing his sentiment. Her reading spiked with something that, if she were human, might have been called melancholy. At the crater's center, they stopped, facing each other. They discussed their initial expectations and how their experiences had shattered those preconceptions. They explored the implications of their work, not just for Zyra's research or Tom's career, but for broader interspecies understanding. The data we've gathered here, Zyra said, looking into Tom's eyes, will fuel discussions and theories for years. But the personal transformations, those might be our most significant discoveries. Tom nodded, his smile bittersweet. Yeah, the science is groundbreaking, but it's what happened here. He gestured between them. That feels like the real breakthrough. As they made their way back to the rim of the crater, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows and painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. They packed away their equipment in silence, each lost in thought. Back at the outpost, as they compiled their final report, the tone was professional, but underneath lay a current of unspoken connection. They uploaded their data to the Galian database and prepared a summary for the Human Research Archives, their words a testament to a profound journey of discovery. As Zyra's departure loomed, they stood outside the outpost, looking up at the star-studded sky. I will carry this experience with me, Zyra said. Not just in my databanks, but here. She placed a hand over what would be her heart if she were human. Tom smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight. And I'll be here, on Mars, a little less alone because of what we've shared. They clasped hands, a human gesture that Zyra had learned to appreciate. As she boarded her ship, a new understanding of connection and change traveling with her across the stars, Tom watched from the Martian surface, a planet that suddenly seemed a bit more familiar, a bit more like home. In the vast silence of space, their shared experiences lingered as a beacon of what could be achieved when two vastly different beings chose to explore the unknown together, not just the cosmos but the inner universes within each other.